When it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, I am from the old school, TSR. Player characters wouldn't have feats. They wouldn't have 50 million different ways of solving a problem, so they had to come up with clever ways that they thought up themselves. How can you escape a fight and avoid an attack of opportunity? Stab your sword in the ground between you and the monster and back off. Putting an object between you and the monster could convince the dungeon master that that monster won't get an attack of opportunity. It would have to move around the sword to get at the character. Your character is having a hard time hitting the monster in close quarters combat, melee. Well, what if you use an action to step to the side of the monster in an attempt to get a bonus to hit the monster that you're having a hard time hitting if the dungeon master buys what you're doing? You're looking to surprise the monster, and by doing so, getting an advantage in combat. Remember, the terrain can always be your friend. It doesn't take much to pick up some dirt in your hand and throw it in the monster's face, trying to blind them. Or there's another great tool called spitting. You spit in the bandit's eyes to blind them, in the aim to get an advantage, either run away or to attack the bandit. If the rogue stays close to battle and doesn't go into close quarters melee combat, they can keep a bell on them, something they could ring to confuse the monsters, have them look their way so fighters can get an advantage to their attack. Wizards or spellcasters should always carry caltrops, even archers, to drop around them when they start getting into range in combat, so if anyone's sneaking up on them, they'll probably have to deal with those caltrops. Earlier I said you could pick up some dirt in your hand and throw it in the monster's face in an attempt to blind them. But with the right terrain like dirt or sand, you don't even need to bend over. You can dig your foot in and then kick that up in their face. If you have archers aiming at your character, you can always pitch your character is zigzagging while they're moving to avoid being hit to make it harder to be hit. Or if they're in close quarters combat, you don't need to zigzag, but remind the DM that you're constantly moving. Your character's always moving to make it harder to be hit by the archers. It might be good to keep some type of 6-foot rope or chain or something around your waist or somewhere where you can access it quickly if you're a fighter. Why? Because when the kobolds come in to surround you, before they can get to you for close quarters melee combat, you start swinging around that chain, your character does, to keep them at a distance, but it also gives your archers and your mages more time to hit those kobolds before they are in close quarter combat with you where the mage might accidentally hit you. Basically, you are creating another round for your range to freely fire on the kobolds before you're in battle. If there is a dragon or some big monster using a breath weapon on you, right away, see if there's any trees or big rocks around your character that you can dive behind. Don't forget to ask. Make sure if there's an opportunity that you don't miss it. Anything that might convince the DM that, hey, this was not as damaging to your character as it should have been. Yes, rocks and trees can soak up some damage. In the old school, players didn't have too many choices, so it forces you to be creative, create opportunities for yourself that's not implied in the game book. The more you have in any game, the less you think like this. You start just taking the option the game gives you, and that numbs your mind and stops you from thinking for yourself. Here are some ideas, and I hope this inspires you during your gameplay no matter what you play, to think for yourself and not always depend on the options that are on your character sheet. For now, take care.